All right, so it is not only the sacred day that is Friday the 13th, but it is also Jason's birthday. So what better way to celebrate the big fella's 79th birthday and also this franchise that I love than to go through which versions of Jason Voorhees I think are the scariest. All right, so the categories for this tier list are going to be right up at the top is oh hell no. Then after that is going to be a stupendous skid mark, then kind of scary, then I've seen better, and then at the bottom, the least scary versions of Jason Voorhees are going to go into dead fuck. Now, first of all, guys, let me know down in the comments down below which versions of Jason you think are the scariest. Also, leave a like on this video as well if you enjoyed it. Really does help this video out a lot. So we're going to start off with the newest movies and go all the way down to the OG movies in the franchise. So of course, we are going to start off with the newest movie, Friday the 13th from 2009. I mean, basically, does this idea of a version of Jason that's this expert woodsman who can throw axes perfectly, can shoot arrows literally anywhere he wants, he's setting traps, he's fast as hell. Plus, on top of that, he is this massive savage that will slaughter literally anybody that comes into his territory. I mean, does that version of the character sound kind of scary to you? Because yeah, to me, that sounds pretty damn scary. Now, this version of Jason in the franchise is easily one of my favorites. I'm just a sucker also just for this era for horror villains. I mean, we got to see a massive, just a really damn good version of Leatherface in this era, a great version from Tyler Mane of Michael Myers in this era as well. And now we get to see Derek Mears also. And I just think those versions of the character, this era, that more brutality, more violent, just bigger versions, are really damn scary and really effective for me. And also at the same time, it also does make me sad that, I mean, we will probably never get a sequel with Derek Mears reprising his role as Jason Voorhees again, because yeah, Derek Mears in this movie is not only scary as hell, but is just an incredible portrayal of the character, blending so many different great aspects of the character. And also, just to talk about the way Jason looks underneath the mask in this movie, I basically feel like that hillbilly kid in the movie where he's like, that shit ain't fucking right, man, when he sees the look of his face. I mean, it is a scary ass version of the character. You know, he's partially bald, definitely looks like this just backwoods hillbilly kind of a guy. His face is deformed. It's a scary look for the character. And also something else that just adds to the brutality and how scary this character is compared to the rest of the movies and the rest of the versions of Jason in this franchise is, I would say on average, the kills that Jason gives us in this movie are probably the best in this entire franchise. Now, there's not like one single kill that I would consider a top 3 kill in the franchise from Jason. But like I said, just on average throughout this movie, I mean, it is just littered with damn good kills from Jason that just reminds you of, man, if you get within the vicinity of this dude, I mean, you're going to have to get pretty damn lucky to get out of this situation, because there is about a 99% chance you're going to die in a horrific way. And like I said, Jason, it adds a little something to how scary that character is with how good and savage the deaths are in this movie. Also, I've got a cool announcement, guys. You can now pick up a Mad Blood candle that I think is perfect for the summer and the fall. The inaugural scent is Summer Camp Cedar. My wife and I went over the formula and tested it so many times to get that smell that personally I really love, and I think you guys will too. It's not one of those candles that smells great when you open it, but when you burn it, you can't really smell it or anything like that, or even vice versa. Like, it smells great when you open it, smells great when you burn it. This thing will immediately make your room smell like this cozy cedar summer camp. But these are available right now in 2 ways. You can either subscribe to the Patreon at the $25 level, get all of the Patreon perks as well as a candle sent to your house, or, you know, if Patreon isn't really your thing, you can also just DM me on Instagram and pick one up. But regardless of how you get them, every single one of these candles will come with a handwritten thank you card from me. And really, one of the biggest reasons why I think this version of Jason in this movie is really scary is there's something about the character. It's got this really suffocating feeling to the character in this movie. Not only, like I mentioned a second ago, he's really fast, so it feels like you could never get away from him. He knows this land better than anybody. But on top of that, it kind of feels like in this movie, you're caught in Jason's spider web in Crystal Lake, and you're pretty much done. Plus, on top of that, there's not this angle of, okay, well, if I'm dead, at least my family will probably eventually, they'll never stop looking for me. They'll find the breadcrumbs, and eventually they'll get revenge. This guy will eventually get what's coming to him. No, that's probably not going to happen, because if you remember in this movie, Jason also has the tunnel system. So they're probably never going to find your body. They're probably never going to find the evidence. So that just adds a little something extra to this character, in my opinion. So yeah, I mean, Derek Mears, his version of Jason Voorhees in this franchise, I mean, come on. It's got to go under oh hell no, because it is just a really damn scary, unforgiving, suffocating version of the character. All right, of course, up next is going to be the Jason from Freddy vs. Jason from 2003. And yeah, this is another big ass version of the character. Kind of has some similarities with Jason from part 3, but I look at it as a worse version of the character. But yeah, he's more of like, in this movie, he's more lumbering and slow, like this robot. Of course, he's basically Freddy's puppet in this movie. And yeah, there's something that's scary about the character in the fact of the character is really strong. And also on top of that, this movie is from 2003. So it's that era of like brutality and violence and kind of like darkness. This movie is like a very just like evil, dark feeling to this movie, which adds a little something to the Jason character as well. He also gives us some great kills in this movie. I mean, all the kills that happen in that cornfield, snapping that jock's head around, twisted. That always makes me laugh, all that brutality. And he slaughters a lot of people in this movie, especially that guy Trey. One of the best kills in this entire franchise, stabbing that guy over and over and over, doesn't give a shit. The insides of this guy is coming out as he's stabbing him with a machete, and then to put the little cherry on top, folds that dude in half with the bed. An incredible kill that makes you say, holy shit, and also makes you laugh at the same time, which definitely adds something to how scary this character is in this movie. But with that said, I do feel like I could get away from this version of the character. I mean, obviously he's got the size and the strength, but come on, this guy is not gonna catch me. But the look of the character, I do think is pretty scary. I think the mask is dark and like tattered and worn and scratched up at certain points in the movie, of course, from Freddy and all of that. But his clothes, it kind of looks like he's wearing like this dirty, smelly burlap. This is definitely another zombie version of the character. Of course, we get that moment in the movie where he's literally coming out of his own grave. So very much a zombie, but yeah, there's something about the look of this character. Like I said, this movie's very dark and kind of sinister, and this version of Jason fits into that. And I get why they went with Ken Kersinger in this movie instead of Kane Hodder coming back to reprise the role. I get that. They wanted somebody like much bigger than Freddy, so when they're like kind of toe to toe, you can really see that size difference in the character. And yeah, Ken's version, his portrayal, not my favorite in this franchise by any means. I also do think that having Jason just basically be Freddy's puppet in this movie definitely takes away from how scary the character is for me. It kind of feels like he would freeze up in certain moments. You could easily manipulate him or easily distract him if you came across him, which definitely makes the character a little less scary, really just because of how dumb they make the character look in this movie. And I get Jason really throughout this entire franchise is not necessarily supposed to be portrayed as a smart character, but we do see some versions of Jason in this franchise where he's setting traps. He knows his way around. He's kind of navigating the movie in kind of a smart, witty way. Whereas in this movie, I mean, this has got to be one of the dumbest versions of the character. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, all right, you could probably get away from this guy. And also, I mean, this is a bit of a nitpick, but Freddy does whoop his ass with the machete towards the end of the movie. Now, it's not just a normal person. It is Freddy Krueger. So like I said, bit of a nitpick there. That doesn't really take off much from how scary the character is for me. But yeah, it's a massive, brutal, dark, very sinister version of the character to me. But definitely has some flaws, like I mentioned just a second ago. But yeah, Jason from Freddy vs. Jason for me, I'm actually going to put this version of the character in kind of scary. The look of the character I feel like is scary. He's big. I mean, if you got within his grasp, I mean, you're pretty much done for. but it definitely doesn't deserve to be towards the top for me. Okay, up next is going to be Jason Voorhees from Jason X from 2002. I'm just going to kind of lump together the two main versions of Jason that we see in this movie, kind of the regular version of Jason and then Jason X, just because they kind of act similar, not necessarily exactly the same, but similar brutality, a similar way that they navigate the movie, kind of a similar like viciousness from the character. Yeah, they look pretty damn different, of course. I mean, the Jason X, the Uber version of Jason later on in the movie definitely has like the demonic eyes and like the really cool, crazy look to the character with the veins, and looks like the mask is basically like sunken into his brain and all of that. Pretty scary look for the character overall. Some people might just think it's hilarious, but I'm gonna lump them together just because of the way that they act and the overall just like feel of the character from Kane Hodder in this movie. And yeah, speaking of Kane Hodder, this is the last movie where Kane Hodder plays Jason Voorhees in this franchise, and I'll talk about this a little bit as this video goes along, because obviously Kane plays Jason a lot in this franchise, but Kane is a very stocky and compact and strong version of the character. Obviously not the biggest version of the character in this franchise, but there's a lot of stuff with Kane's portrayal of the character. It's a great blend of a lot of the great stuff we see with the different versions of Jason in this franchise. He's mean and brutal. He's not really slow, but he's also not really fast at the same time. It's kind of an in-between in that area. He's maybe a slightly above average height character. Like I said, he's not a massive version, but he's also not like a really short version of the character or anything like that, but just like a stockier version of the character who just gets shit done in this movie. And obviously this is a wild movie, Jason in space. There's some stuff to really like in this movie. There's also some stuff that I just think is pretty damn bland with this movie. But with that said, I mean, we get one of the best kills from Jason in this entire franchise, that cryo kill. But when I think about that kill and how scary the Jason character is, it reminds me of just like the tone and the feel of this character. So he brutally smashes this lady's face. He just quickly kind of looks at his work after he smashes his face for a second, looks at it, and then tosses her just to the side like a rag doll and just goes about his business. And to me, just speaking of Freddy versus Jason, a version we just talked about just a second ago, it feels very, very different than that version of the character. The Jason and Freddy versus Jason kind of just seems like this lumbering version of Jason who's just walking throughout the movie, kind of just reacting to things, whereas Kane Hodder's version of Jason in this movie, there's something about it. He feels very proactive, like he's speed walking throughout this movie, getting shit done and just going after his next target one after the other after the other. You know, he's not lumbering around. He's just getting shit done. Now, with that said, to me, this is not one of the scariest versions of Jason in this franchise. He doesn't really have that angle of where he feels like this weird, demented, dirty guy that lives in the woods killing people. He also doesn't really have that full-on feeling of being this unstoppable killing machine that you could never even consider getting away from. So that's not really great. But with that said, I mean, you do not want to be on a spaceship with Uber Jason stomping around, because he will probably hunt you down and brutally massacre you. So yeah, there's some stuff with this character that I do really like. Some people, of course, just think this version of the character is completely silly and ridiculous, but I think there is some scariness to the character, to all the versions of the character in this movie. So to me, yeah, the Jason from Jason X, I'm going to go ahead and put it into kind of scary for me, because we get some good kills, like I said, the demonic eyes and all of that, and just like the relentlessness of Kane Hodder's portrayal of the character, like very much like a type A type of a Jason Voorhees. He's just very proactive version of the character who's just gonna stomp throughout this spaceship, hunting everybody down and killing everybody in his way. And there's something about that that does work for me. All right, yes, it is now time to talk about the Jason from Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday from 1993. And there's something to be said about the soul of Jason in this movie. It's like this ruthless, emotionless killing machine. And also, on top of that, depending on how long Jason's soul has been in a particular human body, kind of catches you off guard, because if it's been in the body a long time, the body starts to reject it, and then the human starts to look more and more like a zombie. But if it's just recently been transferred into the body, I mean, it can catch you off guard in this movie, and that's kind of scary. You just be like, oh, hey, Bob from accounting, how's it going? Oh, shit, Bob, what the fuck are you doing? And that'll catch you off guard, you know, it's kind of sneaky. And yeah, I know this is a wild movie. Some of you absolutely hate this movie. Some of you think this movie is so unique in the franchise and so incredible, especially if you've been binging all the movies. This one all of a sudden pops up and it's kind of different. I get that angle to it. But without question, the soul of Jason and just Jason in general in this movie, pretty mean, and also gives us one of the best kills in this entire franchise. I do have a ranking of all my favorite kills in the entire franchise. Not going to spoil that. You can go check out that video if you want to see which kills I consider top 3 or number 1 in the franchise. But this kill, the tent kill with like that tent post up and through that girl's body when they're having sex, I mean, man, that is a crazy kill. Super gory, shocking, all of that. Definitely one of those kills that immediately makes me think about the old VHS days where you see something like that in a Friday the 13th movie and you're like, holy shit, and you got to rewind it and rewind it and rewind it just to see how it was all pulled off and just to really like get all of it because it was so shocking in the moment. But a crazy ass kill, and reminds you that Jason in this movie is going to be kind of scary because this dude will definitely fuck you up. And also, I do think the traditional look of Jason in this movie, we mainly get to see at the beginning of the movie and at the end of the movie, actually looks pretty damn good. I think it's pretty scary as well. I like the look of it. The mask is very worn and nasty and gritty. His head is kind of like waterlogged and deformed and puffy and juicy, and the little bits of hair sticking out. It's a pretty scary version and just look of the character. Now, I get we don't get to see that version of the character very much in this movie, a big gripe for a lot of people, but something to be said about the look of Jason. I don't think it's bad at all and does kind of look scary. But yeah, just to piggyback off of that, the Jason we've came to know and love, the real version of Jason in this movie, is really just like a side character in this movie for the most part. Plus, on top of that, Jason definitely gets owned by Steven and Jessica at the end of this movie, which, you know, just takes away from how scary the character is, how dominating the character seems. He by no means seems like this version of the character that's very suffocating, like a version you could never get away from, which I think is a very scary version. Obviously, doesn't really have that in this movie. So some good things, some bad things with how scary this version is. For me, you know, this version from Jason Goes to Hell, I think it's got to go into I've seen better. It's not the worst. It's got some vicious brutality without question. Great kill, that tent kill, of course, but like I said, some bad stuff as well. All right, moving right along to Jason from Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan from 1989. Now, this is easily one of my favorite looks of the character in this entire franchise, and there's some aspects to the way that he looks that I think is pretty damn scary. I mean, his mask is very gritty and worn and yellow. I mean, this guy is waterlogged after everything that happened in Friday the 13th, Part 7. You know, he's been in Crystal Lake. He looks all moist and just mossy and nasty in this movie. And yeah, in this movie, it's once again Kane Hodder playing Jason Voorhees in this franchise, and very similar to what I said in Jason X. I mean, Kane plays the character as this type of a Jason Voorhees that is just getting shit done in this movie. He is a target and he is going for it, very much like this type A type of a Jason Voorhees. He's not reacting to things. He's got an idea and a goal that he's about to do, and he is just going, man. Now, when I think about Jason specifically in that diner, now obviously you don't want to be in his way, because if you're in his way, something bad could definitely happen. But with that said, there are a lot of moments in this movie where if you're in his way, there's a decent chance that you're going to survive. There's a lot of moments that we see in this movie where he's bumping into people, he's breaking their radio, he's walking past a ton of people, and they all seemingly survive. You know, he doesn't feel like that unstoppable just buzzsaw, leaving this bloody wake of everybody in his way, just slaughtering everybody. It doesn't have that feel to the character at all. They definitely went for a different angle of the character, and I get why, but to me, that does kind of knock how scary the character is in this movie for me. And yeah, although I do think this movie has a lot of charm, this movie is by no means my favorite movie in the franchise or anything like that, but like I said, it is one of my favorite looks to Jason in this entire franchise. But with that said, I don't think by any means this is one of the scariest versions of the character. And a big part of that is, like I said, he lets a lot of people survive in this movie. So that does knock that down there a bit. And like I said earlier, I get why he lets a lot of people survive. I mean, it makes sense for this movie, but that definitely makes the character a little less scary for me, but still some stuff to really like here and also some stuff not really to like. But for me, Jason from Jason Takes Manhattan, I'm going to put him under I've seen better. All right, moving on to Jason from Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood from 1988. So in this movie, Tina's telekinesis powers have awoken Jason from his nap at the bottom of Crystal Lake, and just that whole like legend of Jason at the bottom of Crystal Lake chained up down there. There's something about that I do think is scary as hell and always makes me think about that legend with this particular movie. And yeah, man, what could have been with the kills from Jason in this movie? I mean, we still do get some fun kills in this movie, but by far the movie in this franchise that was butchered the most by the MPAA during this era. They cut down so many of the great kills that could have been just some of the all-time classics in this franchise, which definitely would have added to just the brutality of the Jason character in this movie. But I'm not going to use that against Jason too much because, like I said, there's still a lot of kills in this movie that are pretty damn good. And you can also just see like the glimpse of what could have been. And I've also, happened to have seen some of the deleted footage as well, even though, it's pretty shitty footage regardless. I mean, just shitty as far as the quality of that footage goes. Still worth checking out though if you haven't seen it yet. But to me, this is the zombie Jason in this franchise. And not only is one of the most badass looks to the character in this entire franchise, but also I think it's one of the scariest looks to the character in this franchise as well. And yeah, Kane Hodder once again playing Jason, so a lot of the stuff I said earlier about Kane Hodder's portrayal of the character does apply here as well. But what a great look to the character. Really damn scary. I mean, he's got the chain around his neck reminding you that this guy is broken out of the bottom of Crystal Lake. I mean, his skin is worn away, just because of the water and all of that. You're seeing some of his bones, his rib cage, his spine. Part of the mask is broken off. It's got the cut in it, of course, but just reminding you this character has been through a lot of shit. So yeah, go ahead and try to take him down, but you can see from all of the wounds and scars that this character has, a lot of people have tried, so good luck. And on top of that, with all of the crazy stunt work that they do towards the end of this movie, he's getting lit on fire, things are falling all over him. Just reminds you, this is an unstoppable zombie killing machine. I think Jason using some of the power tools in this movie is effective for me, adds to some of the brutality of those kills. And he isn't necessarily fast in this movie or anything like that, but he's kind of agile. But on top of that, you add all of like the teleporting that happens in this movie. And that very much feels like, okay, I can't get away from this character, which makes the character scarier to me. Yeah, just the look of the character, really scary. He's teleporting all over the place. He's brutal. Yeah, the kills are cut down. I get that, but great version of the character. One of my favorites in this entire franchise. And I think it's a pretty damn scary version of the character. All right. It's going to be our first one in a stupendous skid mark because, yeah, it's going to be a pretty damn big stupendous skid mark in my pants if I run into this version of Jason. All right, moving along to Jason from Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives from 1986. And yep, Home Depot Jason. And since there was no Jason technically in Friday the 13th, Part 5, they wanted to remind you in this movie that, yeah, Jason lives. Jason is back in this franchise because Jason is in this movie. You just see him a ton in this movie, which I'm sure for some people might take away from how scary the character is because you're just seeing him so much in broad daylight and all of that. I think it does take away from just the mystery of the character a bit, especially when you think about like Friday the 13th Part 2 and how mysterious the character is in that movie. This movie definitely doesn't have that. So yeah, I would say that kind of does take away from the mystique of the character a bit. And yeah, this is the first true zombie version of Jason in this franchise. Tommy, in the beginning of the movie, accidentally brings him back to life because of the lightning and all of that. But this version of Jason, definitely a big zombie version of the character, feels very unkillable at times, which also is why at the end of the movie, obviously Tommy is like, I can't kill this guy. I just need to just trap him at the bottom of the lake. And there's something scary about that. And yeah, in this movie, Jason is mainly played by C.J. Graham. And now it's a big version of the character, of course, but it's not really the same as like Derek Mears' portrayal of the character, but it's also not really all that similar to the portrayal of the character in Freddy versus Jason. It's kind of in between. He's not fast, but he's also not slow and lumbering. He is definitely going about his business and moving around, doing some stuff in this movie without question. The character also feels very powerful, definitely, in this movie. I mean, if he gets his meat hooks on you, you are pretty much screwed. I mean, he's bending the sheriff in half. He's using the fence post spear thing to throw that guy early on in the movie like a rag doll. Yeah, he's messing some people up in this movie. And I do think the look of Jason in this movie is one of my favorite looks of the character in the franchise. I like the mask. It's worn. It's shown the stuff that he's been through. It's almost like kind of a saucer mask. It's like really big and it's like lighter color. His skin kind of almost looks like lizard skin. You know, of course, it's supposed to look like a zombie and all of that, but just the overall look of the character, I do think looks pretty cool. Is it scary though? Definitely not one of the scariest looks for the character in the franchise. I would say it's kind of just mid-tier kind of in that area as far as the look goes. And yeah, we do get some really fun and some great kills from Jason in this movie, but purposely they made the kills in this movie more over the top, more theatrical. They purposely didn't want the kills from Jason to feel like really mean or dark or sinister. So to me, that definitely does take away from how scary this character is in this movie. But regardless, I mean, with that said, like I mentioned just a second ago, this is a big, brutal, strong version of the character. You wouldn't ever want to be even remotely nearby because like I mentioned, if he gets his hands on you, you are definitely screwed. But with that said, like I said, the kills in this movie a little bit more theatrical and over the top, a little bit silly at times. He's purposely not supposed to be a really scary version of the character. And that's kind of just how I see the character. There's some moments where, you know, you're like, okay, yeah, you would never want to run into this character, but also at times it feels a little like over the top and theatrical. So some scary stuff and some not so scary stuff. So Jason from Part 6 for me is gonna go into, yeah, kind of scary for me, just because of those reasons that I just mentioned. Now I know obviously in Friday the 13th Part 5, we do see a little glimpse of Jason in some of those dream sequences and stuff like that, but the character who is really portraying the Jason Voorhees type of a character, the serial killer in Friday the 13th Part 5, is obviously Roy Burns. It's not Jason Voorhees, but because that character is one of my favorites in this entire franchise and does have some aspects to the character that is really damn scary, I just wanted to talk about Roy Burns also just for a second. So yeah, honorable mention to Roy, who I think is a scary ass killer in this franchise. He's kind of this demented maniac whose son was murdered and now he's on this revenge tour to kill anybody in his way. It kind of seems like also he doesn't really have much else to live for. I mean, this guy is taking shots left and right. He knows this is probably the end for him. He's going to get caught, but he's just going to keep on coming. He's going to kill as many people as he possibly can before the end is near for him. Very much feels like Pamela Voorhees, obviously a very similar motive. And both of those killers, I mean, there's something about that motive that gives them a true passion for revenge. That is really scary. So yeah, shout out Dick Whitehead as Roy Burns, because if you were Jason Voorhees, I mean, I would put you in a stupendous skid mark because I think it's a scary ass version of a killer in this franchise. All right, moving right along to Jason from Friday the 13th, Part 4, the final chapter from 1984. And Man, the job that Ted White does with Jason in this movie is kind of crazy to me. It's kind of like this perfect storm. And what I'm about to say is going to sound maybe a little bit weird for some of you, because some of you would be like, what do you mean? I would love to have seen Ted White in more versions of Jason in the sequels in this franchise. And there's a part of me that does agree with that. But there's also a part of me that feels like getting Ted White just one time as Jason, at Ted White's age when he portrayed Jason, just one great movie. There's something about that that just kind of feels perfect. Like that character didn't overstay his welcome. We didn't get too much of it. We just got one incredible portrayal of the character. And it's just like, damn, that was a lot of fun. We don't get to see that too much, especially in Hollywood nowadays. They just bleed everything great, completely dry until we're completely sick of it. But just getting one damn good movie with Ted White, I don't know, man. There's just something about it. His age, where he was at in his career, all of that feels like just this perfect storm. And as far as how scary the Jason is in Friday the 13th Part 4, so Ted White was this really experienced stuntman, even the double for John Wayne, and just kind of this really tough-nosed, old school, take no shits kind of a guy. And I feel like with the Jason character that he portrays, that comes across through the character on screen. You can feel that from the character. There's this certain grit and this like almost meanness to Jason in Part 4. And to me, this version of Jason is pretty damn scary. There's just something about this version of the character. It's like this demented, dirty guy that lives in the woods. We see like his long, dirty fingernails and all of that. That close up on his face, you can kind of see like the cataracts in his eyes. And yeah, of course, that deformed, scary ass face. I mean, shout out to Tom Savini and the rest of his team, especially with the work that they did with Jason underneath the mask in Part 4. And also to me, this is the last time in the franchise where Jason truly has that early 80s kind of a look to the character. I feel like all of the versions of Jason from Jason Lives onwards it's like a different era for the character without question. Whereas from Friday the 13th Part 4 all the way down to especially Friday the 13th 2, those three movies in particular, Jason has a very specific kind of feel and look. It's very human-like. It's very believable, just like a crazy man. You could argue that Jason is already dead in this movie. Yes, you could make that argument, but the version of Jason in the final chapter doesn't feel truly supernatural yet. Of course, in Jason Lives and Beyond, the character feels very supernatural in a lot of those movies. Not all of them, but in a lot of those movies. And even in Jason Lives, obviously he's resurrected by lightning, so clearly he's a very supernatural character, whereas still feels very human-like in the final chapter, which adds a little something extra to me. Jason in this movie is also big, but he's not massive, whereas he doesn't feel as short as like Kane Hodder's portrayal of the character. He can also run a little bit, so that adds a little something extra to the character as well. And like I said, he's not massive, but he also just feels powerful and strong in this movie. Shares maybe some similarities with Michael Myers, even though the fact that he's running kind of separates himself from like a Michael Myers type of a character, especially in the early 80s where we were getting some Myers movies as well. But also, I mean, Jason gives us some great kills in this movie. Some of my favorites in the entire franchise. The Axel kill, showing more of his power, twisting that dude's head around, all of that. I mean, Doug's head crunch in the shower, his nasty ass hands just brutally crunching this guy's head. He's killing the girl in the raft. He's throwing one of the twins out of the window. Like I said, there's some meanness to the character in this movie, some power and some grittiness to it. And yeah, I get that a kid and a young girl technically did kill him at the end of this movie, but regardless, and the reasons that I just mentioned a second ago, I think this is a pretty damn scary version of the character. And yeah, I kind of feel like Jason from Part 4 needs to go in a stupendous skid mark. I mean, I could put him in oh hell no. There's a lot of reasons why I could, but I do kind of feel like it's a little less scary than maybe like the Derek Mears portrayal, because he's a little more vulnerable. Obviously, we see him get killed at the end of the movie. I mean, Derek Mears' character as well, but it's not a kid and a teenage girl doing it, right? So there's something with the vulnerability there with the Jason from Part 4. And he's also a little slower, you know what I mean, on top of that. But still, I mean, a stupendous skid mark. I mean, that still means he's a very scary version of the character. All right, moving right along to Jason from Friday the 13th, Part 3 from 1982. And I look at this version of Jason, which is a version that I do really like, as kind of a blend of a lot of the Jasons in this franchise. And to put it more specifically, I kind of look at this as like the standard poster boy for Jason. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. A lot of the Jasons we see later on in the franchise are like way on one end of the spectrum. Like they're massive and brutal with bones showing. They're zombies. They have chains around their neck. They have slime coming out of them. And then on the other end of the spectrum, like in Friday the 13th Part 2, it's a smaller version of Jason, just with like a sack over his head. Whereas this version is like the clean mask. He's big, but he's not the biggest. He's fast, but he's not the fastest. Just kind of a blend of a lot of the aspects of Jason in this franchise that we've seen. And I'll be honest, there is just something about the Jason in Friday the 13th Part 3 that just feels weirdly scary to me. I really like the way that Richard Brooker portrays the character and just how the character looks also. Like he's really tall and kind of lanky, but also he has like this thick ass neck with these big traps as well. And yeah, like I mentioned earlier, this version of Jason does share some similarities with the Jason from Freddy versus Jason, but he's much faster. He's not just like this lumbering robot like Jason is in that movie. Yeah, there's a lot of moments in Part 3 where he's kind of lumbering around, like when he kills that girl with the spear gun and just kind of like throws it on the ground and just slowly like lumbers about his next business. But in this movie, he seems like a real person who's kind of thinking throughout this movie and not just like a puppet robot zombie kind of a thing like in Freddy versus Jason. The Jason in Part 3 honestly does remind me of Sloth from the Goonies, like this guy who does have some disabilities, but he's massive as hell. And of course, the character is meaner than Sloth in the Goonies, but just this massive guy who doesn't always think right, and he is on an absolute killing spree. I also think there's something about the flashback dream sequences from Chris's character with Jason in particular that are just kind of eerie and creepy to me. And yeah, there's just something weird and off about this character that I think is scary. Like towards the end of the movie when he doesn't have his mask on, there's just something about the look of the character and how wide his eyes get. He's almost like this demented guy who's all of a sudden really like anxious or excited in that moment. He's running at the screen, he's running at the characters. That just feels like eerie and kind of scary. Plus, he's not just like this big goofy guy running around. I mean, he is killing people in this movie. I mean, Jason does give us some brutal and very strong kills. I mean, like he cuts that guy in half doing the handstand, you know, crushing Rick's head, showing some of his power there. It's just like this massive, unhinged, goofy, inbred maniac just kind of lurking around the woods, lurking around your cabin and all of that. I don't know. There's something about the Jason from Part 3 that I think is unhinged and scary to me. I think Jason from Part 3 is going to go into a stupendous skid mark. Yeah, scary version of the character. All right, now technically this is the last Jason that I'll be putting on this tier list, but I will be talking about the Jason that we get to see at the very end of the original movie as well. But of course, up next is going to be Jason from Friday the 13th, Part 2 from 1981. And one thing I really like about this movie and the Jason in particular, but like I mentioned a little bit earlier, there's this great mystery around Jason in this movie. A part of this movie is kind of like a whodunit. They're not really showing Jason a ton. They're just showing like quick little glimpses of the character, like that moment when the sheriff or the cop is driving down the road and then Jason just quickly runs across the road. There's something about that that's eerie and scary. Like this guy, you don't really know who he is or what he looks like. He looks kind of weird. You just see him for a second here and there in the shadows lurking around. You know, he's not like this unstoppable zombie that's just bumping into people. He doesn't care who sees him. He's just running around all over the place. No, this is like a dude who's genuinely trying to do some weird shit, and he wants to also make sure nobody finds him. Speaking of shots of Jason in this movie that I do think are eerie, there is that shot towards the end of the movie, which is actually one of my favorite shots in this entire franchise, and I think is one of the scariest shots in this entire franchise. It's when Ginny is in Jason's shack, like I said, towards the end of the movie, and you can just see behind Ginny that little window in his shack, and you can see Jason running towards the shack. There's something about that, and the way that shot lingers, I don't know, it kind of just gives me goosebumps, and is pretty damn creepy. And yeah, like I kind of mentioned a little earlier in this video, this is the most regular type of guy Jason in this franchise. Just very much like a believable dude that's just living off in the woods, doesn't really know what he's doing. He's throwing together this weird, smelly, dirty shack. He just kind of finds this sack, this burlap sack or whatever, in a shed somewhere. Doesn't really think about it too much, just throws it over his head. He's got just like the one eye hole, and it's like that big wide eye that you see in certain moments in the movie, which actually I think is pretty damn creepy as well. But there's just something about this believable killer. I've talked about Ghostface, in the past on other videos, and there's something about that believable killer next door that is scary to me. Some people think like the very supernatural stuff is scarier, but I just think there's something really, really scary about a story that is very believable. This story about like this inbred hillbilly maniac on a revenge tour, he's like almost a child in an adult body doing bad shit in the woods. But yeah, just to piggyback off of that a little bit, yeah, I love the look of the character in this movie. He's got the overalls going on. He's got the flannel going on. The pickaxe, like something just a guy would find in a small town like this. It just seems unhinged. In a weird way, this version of Jason kind of seems like a character you would run into like in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, like this weird unhinged guy that's not all there, maybe in the middle of Texas. But instead of the middle of Texas, when your car breaks down and you happen to run into this dude, no, it happens to happen up in the Northeast, in the woods, in this small town, just way out in the cut. And there's something about that grittiness that I really enjoy and I think is scary. Also, to me, such a scary look for the character underneath the mask that we see at the end of this movie. Just like this mangy look to the character. His hair is just kind of ratty and all over the place. His eyes also are all over the place. He's got like this big forehead. It's just a creepy look to the character. And yeah, of course, this movie is from the early 80s, and there's definitely that Halloween inspiration in this movie, which also I think adds something to the Jason character that is very unique in this franchise. He's creeping around in the shadows. We see some of those Halloween type POV shots, like that one shot with the knife. You can see his bruised up fingernails and all of that. Very Halloween there. But like I said, creeping around in the shadows. At times the kills are very subtle, but kind of feel like mean, even though they are subdued. Like towards the end of part 2, when Ginny and Paul are in that dark room and Ginny says out loud, I think there's somebody in this room with us. There's something about that that's kind of scary to me. It reminds me of that moment in the original Halloween 2 when Michael Myers is hiding in that young girl's house and just all of a sudden pops out of there. Very much reminds me of this moment in Friday the 13th Part 2. There's something about this weird guy just like hiding under beds and in closets and waiting for that chance in the dark to kill you. But yeah, I'm also just a sucker for early 80s slasher movies. I love the look of them. The aesthetic is kind of almost a little bit 70s as well, just with the colors and all of that, which I think is a great era for slasher movies and horror movies just in general, and adds a little extra, like just makes the movie a little extra scary. So yeah, for me, honestly, I love this version of Jason in part 2, and I think it's pretty damn scary. I mean, look at that guy. It's a small picture, but come on now. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to put him in a stupendous skid mark. I mean, I could put him in oh hell no, but there's a lot of vulnerability with this character. I'm sure a lot of us are like, I could maybe take this guy down because he's very human-like, but that also adds to how scary this character is at the same time. I mean, he could go in oh hell no, but I think a stupendous skid mark works for that character. All of these categories, they're not in any particular order. They're just jumbled up there. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, Jason from part 2, man, scary version of the character. All right, and I know that this version of Jason isn't technically on this list, but I did want to talk about it just for fun. Of course, the version of Jason that we see just for like 5 seconds at the end of the original Friday the 13th, but such an iconic moment. One of the most iconic jump scares in the history of horror movies, man. what I would do to go into a time machine, pull up a DeLorean, and go back opening weekend in 1980 and get to see some of the reactions from some of the people in the theater opening weekend to the original Friday the 13th, man. That would be cool as hell to see. If you were there, down in the comments down below, let me know what you saw back in 1980, all those years back. But anyways, yeah, such a creepy look for the character, like this swamp thing, and a great job with the design and all of that I think is really damn scary, and also makes you think if you're swimming in a lake at summer camp, you look down at the water like, man, I hope there's not some nasty rotting corpse in this lake too. But because the character was only in the movie for just a few seconds, I didn't feel like it was appropriate to have it on this list. But still, great design to the character. One of the greatest jump scares ever, like I said. That scream, very iconic, and you know, what a moment in horror history. But there you go, everybody. Those are the versions of Jason Voorhees that I think are the scariest. Also, just a heads up, I do have some new shirts in my merch store, stuff like this. Camp Mad Blood Summer of '85 also says Camp Mad Blood on the sleeve. Really comfy, highly recommend it. I like this shirt a lot in particular. A ton of other great stuff on there as well. But also, I want to thank my Patreon supporters and my channel members. Guys, thank you so much for the continued support. Really do appreciate it. If you want some more videos from me right now, go ahead and check out one of these videos next to me. I have a ton of Friday the 13th content on the channel. If you don't want to miss future videos, the best way to do that is to make sure you subscribe, turn on those notifications. My social media links will be down below in the description if you want to follow me over there. But thanks so much for watching, everybody. Really do appreciate it. There's a lot of things you could do with your time today. The fact that you watched this video, really damn cool. But my name is Matt, and I will talk to you in the next one.